Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all very much for coming this evening. My name is Jay Shear. I am the president of the Flagler Tiger Bay Club. And we have a fantastic evening planned with our candidate interviews. And these conversations, these questions tonight, the intent is to help the community, help each and every one of you and all the stakeholders be able to make a good, educated decision on who you want shaping the future of this area. So if I could ask everyone to stand up as we recite the pledge. The flag is right back here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. And if I could ask Bree Cuniff to join me up here to lead us in the invocation, please.
Thank you, Jay.
Stay standing, please. Thank you.
We gather together here today with the intent on doing good work as the Flagler Tiger Bay Club. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us the task. We promise to leave all of our political differences outside and come together at our meeting as brothers and sisters for our community. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect to all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all our matters before us. Amen.
Thank you for that, Bree. Appreciate it. And if I could ask that all elected officials, if you could please stand, if we have some elected officials here that are in the room with us. And I am looking around. I don't see any. Okay, fair enough. So if I could ask Amelia Fulmer to join me up here. Amelia is the first vice president of the Flagler Tiger Bay Club. Amelia is going to go over the rules of the road for tonight.
Okay, first of all, the Flagler Tiger Bay Club principles and practices are civility, and an honest attempt to listen from the other person's point of view, passion without anger, and helping to develop the next generation of leaders. You are our guest at this event. We have a zero tolerance policy for not adhering to those principles and to our policies. Please be respectful towards the candidates. There shall be no outburst, cheers, jeers, sign waving, or distractions. Please be respectful to everyone. Non-adherence of these policies will result in your removal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amelia. So at this moment, I would like to introduce you to our moderator tonight. Our moderator happens to be Greg Davis. And for those of you who do not know Greg, Greg is one of the founders of the Flagler Tiger Bay Club. He is also the president emeritus of the club. And he also is the vice chair of our forum committee. So without further ado, Greg Davis.
And I'm also the oldest person in this room. So I want to thank you for that as well. So this evening, the first thing I want to do is to be able to introduce you to our panelists. Our panel is comprised of key demographics that we believe truly represents our community. The panelists are Penelope Anderson. Penelope is, please stand, Penelope, is a senior at Embry-Riddle University, a Flagler Tiger Bay Club Young Executive Member, and a student eligible, and is a student who's also eligible to vote. Thank you. Amelia Fulmer. Amelia Fulmer is director of the Flagler Auditorium, first vice president of the board, and member of Flagler Tiger Bay Club. Thank you. Lovey Haley, a recent graduate of Embry-Riddle University, She's a member of Flagler Tiger Bay Club, board member, and she's also a young executive. David Paul, he's health and life insurance broker. He's a Flagler Tiger Bay Club young executive. He's a board member of the Flagler Tiger Bay Club as well. And finally, Troy Railsback. Troy is a management consultant at Southern States Management Group. He's a business executive from the community. So these are our panelists. Let me go over our interview format today. Each candidate will have 2-minute opening statement. The candidate will introduce themselves in alphabetical order by last name. There are 6 to 9 segment rounds of questions asked by the interview panel. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Our timekeeper is Bree Cunoff, and she will hold up a sign when they have 15 seconds remaining, and then will verbally announce time is up and when the time is up. If a candidate names another participant form candidate in their answer, the named candidate will have 30 seconds to respond, and that will be the final response, the end of the response. The moderator reserves the right to ask any follow-up questions and/or limit off-topic responses. In the first round, candidates will be asked questions by panelists in alphabetic order by last name. We have a little change coming up on that, but we'll find out in a second. Each subsequent round will follow the same pattern, starting with the next candidate in sequence and ending with the previous round starting candidates. On the questions were developed from 4 sources. Conducted interviews in the community. Questions were submitted by the public to Flagler Tiger Bay's email. Questions from panelists and questions from Tiger Bay Club members and board members. So these questions came from the community, are the kinds of things, interview questions you have that you want to ask the candidates. So with that, those are the rules of engagement we're going to do. So next we'll begin with our candidate introductions, and we'll begin with Cornelia Downing Manfrey, Palm Coast Mayor. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Tiger Bay, for putting this on. I come from a family of service. Both of my parents were lieutenants in the United States Navy, and my son Barrett is now a lieutenant in the Navy. I graduated from Fordham University in urban studies and city planning and French. I moved to Palm Coast in 1999, and all 3 of our children have graduated from the Flagler Palm Coast High School, and very proud of that school. My husband's former sheriff, Jim Manfrey, and my background. My background has been dedicated to this community for the last 25 years in bringing commercial and industrial jobs to the community. Not only that has increased our tax base, now it's time for change at City Hall. I believe that we need a new city manager. That will be the responsibility of the council to hire. I want to institute performance management through the city manager, budgetary review of all of our expenditures, review and plan for infrastructure upgrading, which must be done immediately. I believe in bringing in a YMCA. I do support the Flagler Historical Society in the use of our firehouse that will be a new one built and the old one, which is the last ITT building remaining in the community. As far as being a mayor has to have the temperament, a balanced temperament, not a temper, to be able to focus on getting a council to come to agreement on the major issues that have to be put before us in the city. Equality, effectiveness, engaged to make Palm Coast an exemplary city in Florida. Thank you.
Next, Adam Morley, State Representative, District 19.
My name is Adam Morley. I was born and raised here in the district. I am raising my family here. My background starts with me growing up at Princess Place Preserve. That's where I fell in love with this area, and I'm in Crescent Beach now with my business, my wife, and my son. For me, this has been, and as many of you probably already know, this is not my first run. I have ran and lost enough times where I'm starting to lose track, but I've always looked at this as a marathon and not a sprint. That's a running joke. So warm up the crowd a little bit there. The goal for me since I started running was to run until this was an open seat again, so that we could bring accurate representation to Tallahassee. I was tired of seeing this area used as a stepping stone for political advancement. I wanted to make sure that our community was going to be represented genuinely and accurately, but we are not getting that, and so I am running to try to bring accurate representation to Tallahassee. I'm Adam Morley, running for state representative.
Next is Mike Norris, Palm Coast Mayor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Everybody got me now? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mike Norris. My family and I, we've been residents of Palm Coast for 18 years now. My wife and I, we own 2 small businesses here in the city. One's been Hello?
Check, 1, 2.
Thank you. As I was saying, I'm Mike Norris. My family and I, we've been residents of the city for a little over 18 years now. We own 2 small businesses. Both our kids went through the school system here, and just restart the time. Anyway, we own two small businesses here. My background is I served 24 years active duty in the military, from private E1 to staff sergeant before receiving my commission at the age of 32 years old. So my last 11 years I served in the military. Started out as a second lieutenant. I retired a captain. I graduated OCS at Fort Benning as a distinguished military graduate. I have 2 master's degrees, one in management and leadership, one in human resource management. And my platform, I've been the longest running candidate in the county, I do believe, other than maybe you, Adam. But I started in February of 2023, and I had a bunch of leaders help me come up with my platform. And we narrowed it down to 5 key areas within the city. That's revitalizing existing infrastructure, attracting industrial growth and employment opportunities, increasing safety and security within the city, smart growth and expansion of the city's boundaries, and empowering the commercial development of town center. I think I had the leadership background. Primarily, after I retired, I served as a critical infrastructure and anti-terrorism officer for Marine Corps installations in Okinawa, Japan. In that role, I was the manager. I was the director of the Emergency Management Center, and I also worked a lot of infrastructure projects on the installation. And I hope to get your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next, Jeffrey Saib.
Good evening, I'm Jeffrey Saib. I'm running for Palm Coast City Council. I moved here with my wife and family in 1995. I became involved with the Palm Coast Community Service Corporation, immediately attending meetings with and then being appointed to the council in 1997 to 1999. I also worked with Jerry Full at that time to have the abandoned Lehigh Valley Railroad tracks converted to the Rails to Trails program. I have undergraduate and graduate degrees, worked 8 years in business and management, then 25 years in teaching, research, and managing critical infrastructure at the University of Florida Cancer and Genetics Research Institute. I became a member of the Palm Coast Beautification and Environmental Advisory Committee in 2014, served 2 4-year terms, the second term as committee chairperson. Our committee was the first to alert the city to the saltwater canal silting problem. Since 2022, I have attended city council meetings, researched and spoken out on the issues over 50 times. I know the city council procedures, city staff, and I know what we'll be looking at going forward. This experience and my management and research background are my qualifications for city council. I am a fiscal conservative and an environmental conservationist. I have run my campaign as a low-budget, grassroots effort. Money shouldn't buy a position. Words and actions should achieve it. Even as we grow larger by the day, we can have a city that is both beautiful with natural beauty, trees and open spaces, and livable with roads and housing and good-paying jobs for our young people. Education, recreation, and entertainment options for all. I'm retired, so this will be my only job. Thank you.
Ray Stevens, Palm Coast City Council, Member, District 3.
Good evening. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Tiger Bay Club for inviting us here this evening so we can tell you our viewpoints and where we stand. As previously mentioned, I'm Ray Stevens. I'm running for City Council, District 3. My family and I have lived in Palm Coast for over 20 years. My wife is a nurse. She works at Advent Health. Prior to that, she worked for the Department of Health in Bunnell for many years. My daughter went through the public school system here and played softball. I coached softball here. And we have, as a result, put down roots in this community. I am a retired police lieutenant from New York, a former deputy sheriff in Pinellas County, Florida, an adjunct professor at Kaiser College in Daytona Beach. I am a graduate of Pace University in New York. My core beliefs, number one, first and foremost, once again, is to put the brakes on what I and many others believe is this uncontrolled or poorly planned development that's putting a strain on our infrastructure to include, but not limited to, sewer, water, roadways, general overall quality of life. Secondly, as your city commissioner, I will be opposed and will not vote for any new taxes or any tax increases until all other cost-saving measures have been fully explored and exhausted. And lastly, I intend to create a better conduit so that the public has a greater say and access into which direction Palm Coast goes now and in the future. Thank you.
Andrew Werner, Palm Coast City Council, Member, District 3.
Yeah, greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, braving the coming weather. So it's great to be here. I've already met some great people here tonight, so thanks for being here. Thank you for the Tiger Bay Club for hosting. This is a great event to get to know everybody. So, yes, I'm Andrew Werner. I'm running for Palm Coast City Council District 3. I am a husband, a father, and I am an everything that has to do outdoors type of guy, okay? I have a bachelor's degree. My educational history is I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I have 2 master's degrees in psychology, and I am currently working as a school psychologist, so that's my working background. My 3 areas of focus on my campaign is, number 1, is our citizens' quality of life. And really, that's the big thing that brings us together. We all want safe roads. We all want safety in our community, clean water, good schools, and good services. The other thing that I've really been preaching out there is economic vitality. So everybody that is following understands that a good deal of our tax base is coming out of our ad valorem taxes is through our property tax. So basically, those that own a home here in Palm Coast are funding the city. So we really need to do a better job of recruiting commercial, industry, things that bring jobs into our community, places that people can work locally and make a living. And finally, and this is where my skill set really comes in, is that I believe that a good representative should be a community advocate. And what does that mean? I think a good community advocate does a good job of listening, advocating, and problem solving for your community. And that's what I hope to bring to the City Council. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you to the candidates. Now we'll begin our interviews. One slight change. What I'm going to do with the interview is we're going to begin with with a question to both mayoral candidates to begin with. And the question I'll begin with goes to, in alphabetical order, to Mike Norris. The City of Palm Coast Utilities operates as an enterprise fund with what we understand unlimited purchasing and bonding authority approved by City Council. If selected, why should the public trust you to expand the city's unlimited purchasing and bonding authority to asset-based quality of life procurements and bonding?
I don't know if your question's alluding to are you alluding to the referendum, or I didn't know if that's what you were trying to get at. Well, we can go this way. The City Council proposed on 2 July to amend the charter, taking out the $15 million cap, $36 million cap on bonding. And a lot of people don't understand how the city is run. The city has like 22 independent funding sources within the city, not just ad valorem. There's all those different funds. There are like 22 funds. The issue with the referendum is they're taking away that limit because they wanted to have unlimited borrowing power, and specifically they were aiming for that sports facility out on the west side. And I think I was probably the only person in the city that stood up at the time on 2 July and said, hey, you guys shouldn't do this. You should just amend the charter to account for inflation. Because right now it's $15 million. If you go with inflation, it's more like $30 million. I even suggest they even go $60 million. So they're asking for something that they shouldn't have, and we should limit the borrowing power of the city. And I will not back that referendum.
Next, Cordelia Downing-Manfrey.
Thank you. The current referendum, I think, is not worded properly. It is not. It is opening the council up to have a carte blanche borrowing power, and I believe that our founding fathers wanted us to have some kind of controls on what we are going to borrow for, or you go out to the public. I do not agree with this referendum. As far as utilities go, we have some serious issues here right now in our utilities. Namely, sewer treatment plant number 1 is in a grave situation that it is one of the reasons why I got into this race, to reassess the monies that are being pulled in by this city and why that sewer treatment plant had not been planned on 5-7 years ago. It must be updated immediately to be able to accommodate any of the developments that are coming in, including town center. So that is what I'm looking to be able to get accomplished immediately. Thank you.
Okay. Follow up for me? Okay. Next, now we're going back to our regular order, so I'll begin again with Cornelia Downing-Manfrey. What is your specific plan to produce long-term economic development and diversification for our community?
Thank you. One of the first things that I think is critical is to be able to get certain services within the city hall organized a little bit better, more responsive to the public, both developers and somebody who wants to go get a permit, that our staff is trained on the time value of money for anything. Once we get things in order, and I don't think it'll take more than a few months, and a new city manager, then we move out to how do we market ourselves? Palm Coast is the heart of Flagler County. I believe in collaborative work with the other cities. So as I go to different conferences, I boast about being from Palm Coast and being 10 minutes to the beach. So I'll include Flagler Beach. But we have to be able to get out to conferences, to the public forums, and to medical operators and the technology companies. Those are the type of companies that I'd like to bring in here. And I also would like to see an industrial development park similar to what is down by the Ormond Airport. Collaborative marketing and execution.
Penelope.
All right, Adam Morley. With a legislature typically dominated by Republicans and a Republican governor, how do you plan to work in that environment to continue to get local priorities and assistance for the area?
My mic. Check, 1, 2. All right. So that's a great question, and one of the things that I have been talking about along the campaign trail is we have 120 state house positions, and it is dominated by Republicans. As a freshman legislator, I'm fully aware, and a Democratic freshman legislator, I am fully aware that my 6 proposals that I would be able to propose probably would not be heard. However, what I am able to advocate for and bring voice to from the community, I feel I'm a fairly effective communicator individually with legislators, and I can communicate with them and basically make them think that it's their idea to support things that are going to help all of our constituents throughout the state. Because at the state level, some of the issues that we are facing impact the entire state, not just our district. So things like overdevelopment, it's not just local to here, it is statewide. There are issues with overdevelopment statewide. There are issues with water statewide, and there are issues with the local control and home rule being stripped away statewide. These are issues that people care about across the political spectrum, and so I think that I'll be able to advocate on their behalf and the behalf of the community by focusing on common ground issues.
Amelia.
Mr. Norris, I'd like to ask the same question that we did of Mrs. Manfrey. What is your specific plan to produce long-term economic development and diversification for our community?
For me, the main thing our city has to do, we have to pull in those organizations that are going to diversify our tax base. Right now, over 90% of our taxes come from ad valorem taxes. We are ideally located between the Cape, Jacksonville Port, and we have I-95, we have US 1. For me personally, not one penny from the city budget would go for advertising for home ownership in this city at all. Completely cut that out, because people are still coming here. I think we currently have around from what the last thing I heard was like 16,000 houses in the queue. So we have to market our city for industry, and the main focus on that is we need land. We have less than 3% of our total land mass within the city that is designated for industrial growth, and that does not work. Anything out by the railroad tracks, all this expansion west, we have to have a heavy industrial component to that. Now, when I say industrial, I'm not talking about smokestacks of the 1960s and 70s. I'm talking about clean manufacturing. We have to get those companies. Space Force is relocating down to the Cape. We have to draw in those companies and industries that are going to be making components for the space industry, and that's a great opportunity for our city.
Love you, Haley.
The next question is for Jeffrey Seib. What is your specific plan to produce long-term economic development and diversification for our community?
Well, this is an issue that we're all talking about because it's very important. As Mike has just said, that the tax base of our ad valorem property taxes is skewed heavily towards homes. And we really need to start moving it in the other direction, because someday it will move by itself in that other direction. So we want to make sure we have enough at the time. In order to do that, we have to set up an economic development vision. The city council had an organization come in just the other week, Able Operations, and they talked about our labor force, and they talked about that this area could be an economic development, as they said, hotspot, because of the fact that we are growing and we have the capacity for growth. But their recommendations were that we develop a community economic development strategy. We develop and we fund economic development ecosystem. We maintain and improve our quality of life. We market, we look at Ormond and Daytona on US 1, the businesses that are coming in there. These are the things we want to do. You know, Forbes tells us that some of the careers for future will be in healthcare, personal care. We've got the healthcare network already set up with the schools. We need to develop that a lot better because that's a great career. I saw in Gainesville the healthcare.
Thank you. David Paul?
For Ray Stevens, same question as the last. What is your specific plan to produce long-term economic development and diversification for our community?
There.
Check. 1, 2.
They're all on, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Well, first, I think we have to address the infrastructure, water, sewer, and highway system if you want to attract business here. But I think it's pie in the sky to think that we're going to attract major industry here in Palm Coast, like Mercedes-Benz World Headquarters. I think we have to be realistic, and we have to look for industry or business that fits Palm Coast, such as businesses manufacturing surrounding the medical profession, the manufacture of blood pressure tools, x-ray machines, parts, etc. Another clean, light industry that we should attempt to attract would be in the electronics field, making parts for computers, telephones, smartphones, etc. These types of industries put very little strain on the infrastructure as compared to some outdoor and larger industries. So my position is that we have to be realistic in what the type of industry we attempt to attract. Thank you.
Troy Railsback.
Mr. Andrew Werner, we're going to ask you the same question as Council Member District 3. What is your specific plan to produce long-term economic development and diversification for our community?
Yeah, so earlier I talked about a good representative listening, advocating, and problem solving. So this is a good way that a city council member can advocate. No one mentioned that the city recently brought in an economic development coordinator in the city. And that is a position that has not been available for years in Palm Coast. And I think that's someone that the city council should be working with to attract businesses here to Palm Coast. How it works is people put applications in, and then we decide what fits our community. We really sell ourselves here in Palm Coast. We have been rated the second safest city in the state of Florida. We're close to the water, and we have beautiful landscape here. So the city sells itself. I can't think of a business who wouldn't want to come and be a part of our community. But I have talked to a lot of businesses. They do complain that there is a lot of red tape that goes into starting businesses here in Palm Coast, especially small businesses. The infrastructure is also an issue. I've been told at Town Center, new businesses that are wanting to come in, it could be up to 3 years before the city can provide them water. So we need to problem solve these issues so we can advocate for more businesses and just be a more attractive place for businesses to come here in Palm Coast.
This next question is for Adam Morley. The city of Palm Coast has embarked on the westward expansion, with the state providing a great deal of support so far for roads to open up the ability to expand. Do you intend to continue to help support the city with this effort, and how do you plan to do that?
I'd like to let my opponent answer first.
Well, I don't think you control the order. This question's for you.
It was a joke pointing out that he's not here. And he hasn't been. And he probably won't be once he's elected either. But to answer the question, yes, I am willing to and going to be working with local leaders on the issues and moving forward with the current projects that have been put down on paper and have been passed. Now, my goals as a state legislator would be to help provide resources for our district for better management and growth strategies rather than what we have currently got, which is not much from the state. The state has done away with the Department of Community Affairs, which used to help communities better manage their growth. When the state did away with that, it was left up to the communities, and developers kind of just came in and did as they pleased. Now, as we are getting back towards a more conservation-minded public, I think that we need to start focusing on better strategies of growth. But yes, I am willing to work to continue that project and getting the resources here to our district.
If I could ask you a follow-up question. How do you plan to align your plan with the new council?
It sounds like we're on the same page with a lot of the issues with overdevelopment, infrastructure, and so I think we're, regardless of who the community chooses on the council, it sounds like I've got partners I can work with to address the concerns of the community.
Penelope Anderson.
Mike Norris, how do you balance continued growth and infrastructure needs without raising taxes for residents?
This one again. That's a hard question. It's hard. The more amenities and the more services we need, the more we're required for taxes. The main thing is diversifying our tax base. We've already mentioned that. 93% is ad valorem taxes. So we have to work and bring those industry in here to take that strain off of residents. We have been overburdened for years, you know, and we also have, it may be on the ballot, where they're going to change the homestead exemption from 3% to 2%. That's going to take a third of our budget away from us in ad valorem if that measure passes. If it's still on the ballot, I hadn't checked all the amendments on the ballot. So we have to pull in those resources. As far, and I'll go to Adam's question too. As far as that western frontier, the city over the last 2 legislative sessions, we got $105 million for that road out west, and that is not completely funded. And if the direct regional impact proposals that we have on the books, they're trying to redo the comprehensive plan and turn it into a master plan development for out there. So we're going to have to fight those developers, because right now we shouldn't be footing the bill for that road, and I'm completely opposed to it. So we have, like I said, on that western frontier, we have to most definitely have an light industrial component, or we don't have to annex that property into the city. And that's going to be our decision. That's why you elect us. We're going to make that decision. We don't have to annex in all these properties.
Amelia Fulmer.
This question is for Jeffrey Seib. What are your plans for affordable housing while simultaneously protecting and increasing current homeowners' property values?
Well, I think it's something that can be accomplished, and we do have a need for affordable housing in our city. I have spoken with many people about that. One of them was the departed now city council person, Kathy Hyder. But there are places where we could put affordable housing that would not have any effect on property values of the rest of the homes in the city. For example, the town center. The town center was originally set up to be arts and education and cultural and entertainment district. Now it's become an apartment district. Well, there are places within there that we could specify and change the zoning to allow a denser number of homes per acre, smaller homes, and more affordable homes that would be regulated, and in those specified areas, we would have affordable housing. We've got a lot of room. There's lots of places there. I believe we can have a place for affordable housing, and we need a place for affordable housing because there's a lot of people, not just young families starting out. It's a lot of people, seniors, that want to not live in a big home, but have something that is affordable, seniors on fixed income.
Lovey Haley.
This next question is for Ray Stevens. What are your plans to increase Palm Coast industry base and job growth?
Would you repeat that question?
What are your plans to increase Palm Coast industry base and job growth?
Well, as I mentioned earlier on the previous question, I think we have to seek to attract industry here, light industry, that fits for Palm Coast. First, though, I said that's putting the cart before the horse because we have to upgrade our infrastructure, water, sewer, highways. I mean, you can't attract industry here if they can't get their employees in and out. Route 100 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll take you 10 minutes to go a mile. So you have to get your house in order before you start thinking about attracting business. You have to make it attractive for business to want to come here. And it's, as I said, it has to be the right type of business, something that fits. I mean, we have plentiful, a large number of hospitals and treatment centers, et cetera. I think the focus should be on industry surrounding that. And also, in this modern day and age, smartphones, parts, repairs, manufacture of same is what I would be looking to attract here. But first, we have to get our house in order. Thank you.
David Paul.
Yeah, for Andrew Warner, what are your plans, if any, to bring a functioning aquatic center to Palm Coast?
So that's a good question. I did talk to a lot of residents who recognize the fact that we don't have amenities like other communities do. So aquatic center and other things like that are things that other communities enjoy that we just don't have here in Palm Coast. I think that that's something that we should definitely look at. Not getting the appropriations for the YMCA was a big setback for us. But the truth is I think the money is still out there. From my understanding, the state pretty much rejected appropriations for things like that across the entire state. So the money is out there. We need a city manager who is going to be advocating for things like that are going to benefit our community and getting grants written so that we can afford things like that. Because as it is right now, our priorities really should be focused on infrastructure and taking care of our city because those are the promises that we made to our community.
Troy Reelsbeck.
Ms. Cornelia Downing-Manfrey, same question regarding how do you balance continued growth and infrastructure needs without raising taxes for residents?
The current revenues that are collected by the city have gone up tremendously, almost 45% in the last 5 collection cycles. And now we're going to close to $412 million for this next year. I think the city needs a city manager that can get in there and look at all these departmental budgets and see where there's potential for cutbacks. I don't want to see services jeopardized. I think we have to see where the money is going and then start preserving monies to address these capital needs that are immediate needs. The sewer treatment plant, the water. So infrastructure has, first you have to look at the budgeting numbers that we have. We've increased our income tremendously without having to increase the taxes, and yet where is the money going? And that's what I don't understand when I look at the budget and review each of these departments. That has to be taken into account. Then we have to get strong about getting the infrastructure that was built by ITT almost 50 years ago. We're 25 years now. That those infrastructures, facilities have got to be addressed immediately. Thank you.
Okay, next question is for Mike Norris. Mike, or Mr. Norris, I'm sorry. Mike's fine, okay. Mike, how will you address and manage constituents who speak their mind during council meetings and who may criticize your leadership and decision-making ability?
I think all politicians get up when they're in a position like that. It's being professional and receiving. Our city council meetings are structured a certain way. And some people get up and they want to speak. If they're speaking about a subject that's on the agenda, they kind of shut that down and say, you know, just this is general comments. But I've been a part of so many different organizations and groups and working groups, anti-terrorism, infrastructure, all those things with it. My career was 24 years. My resume only covers half of my career because half of it was enlisted. But I am customer service focused. My last assignment, I was the installation physical security officer for Naval Base Kings Bay up in Georgia. I had 2 pass and ID offices. One was for general people, and the other one was for contractors. And when people came into my office, number 1 priority is treat them respectfully and take care of their needs. It's not that hard. Addressing the public, I've been public speaking my whole career. I started out my MOS as enlisted. I was a chemical operations specialist. I was one person in an organization of 150. So I've been an instructor and public speaking my entire life. And dealing with organizations and meetings, it's no problem for me. Thank you.
Penelope Anderson.
Jeffrey Seib. Regarding the city manager open position, what are the specific experiences, skills, and attributes you see as essential to this critical executive hire?
Well, I think the city manager position is a critical position because the city manager runs the city staff, runs the city. The council sets policy, the manager carries it out. So we need that. We need someone who has an academic background in city planning. We need someone who may have experience with city planning in other locales. We need someone who, while I spoke to the city council, our city council now, about holding off on the selection of a city manager because I feel the city manager should have a connection with the city council, some type of connection with what the attitudes are of the city council. So that was a fact that why I asked for them to hold off on any selection until after this election. But I think that it should be someone who has a professional manner, who is results-oriented, who will listen and act on what the public says, and will have a gung-ho attitude, ready to go and really move out. Just real quick on the homeless, on the affordable housing issue. You know, home ownership has a change. It changes people. It really gives people a good attitude on life. And it's a good thing for us to be pushing for folks to be homeowners. And that's why I think there is a place for affordable housing.
Amelia Fulmer.
This next question is to Ray Stevens, and it's similar to the last, but given the termination of the last 3 city managers, what methods and assurances should the city offer and communicate to attract top-tier city manager candidates?
first you have to pick the right person for the job. Has to be apolitical, an apolitical choice. I would be looking for a city manager that first and foremost has people experience, because when you reach the level of city manager, you're managing people. You require less technical skills. You need more managerial skills. You have to be a people person, because an integral part of the job of city manager is dealing with the public and people. I would be looking for a city manager with a degree in municipal government related studies, and somebody with a proven track record, perhaps with managerial, city manager experience, if you will, in another community. That would be my approach, and that's to guarantee that if you pick the right person and it's for the right reasons, they will last. If you don't, then they won't last, and that's perhaps has been the problem for the last 3 city managers.
So
Thank
do you have, can I follow-up question to that? So do you have any ideas on what the city might offer to get better candidates?
Well, support and stability. I think the pay is quite reasonable. You have to, when you have a subordinate as a city council, you have to display to that individual that we support you in your effort, and we want to see you succeed. If you take a counter position and you have not a good working relationship with your city manager, is not going to last.
Okay. Lovey Haley.
The next question is for Andrew Warner. Describe your understanding and experience in the state legislative process in obtaining state legislative appropriations requests for city priorities.
Yeah, so it's fairly limited, but what I will say is this. I will say that we need to work together. I think that, the next state representative, I would really like to see have a really good and close relationship with everyone on the city council, because us on the city council are really ground level as to what is important for the people. So the people communicate to us what's important, and we should continue to have that dialogue with our state representative. We should prioritize what is most important to our city and to the people of our city, and really advocate with our state representative to be networking within the state house. All of us, and even folks that live in Palm Coast, but any one of us that gets elected to the city council, we should also be making calls up to Tallahassee so that they hear our voice and understand what our needs are. Because I do believe if we communicate our needs to Tallahassee, they will come through for us. So for me, it's really about relationships, networking, and being very clear about what people have communicated to us about what our city needs.
David Paul.
Yeah, this is for Cornelia. The new city council will have to select and hire a new city manager. What is your specific experience in hiring senior level executives?
Thank you. Before I moved to Florida, I did 20 years of corporate real estate in New York. I had to hire different types of contractors, attorneys. I've dealt with professionals of many different levels. In order to find the proper city manager, I believe I've got the experience to be able to review someone's capabilities and be able to execute on getting the right person here. I believe opening it up also to the consultancy field, because consultants are trained to be problem solvers, and that is another category of potential city management candidate. So I think we can, there are a lot of opportunities out there, and I do believe that once we have the city council, the new council in place, and we work together, give it a couple of months, and get the applications out, then we'll be able to show a strong team. The mayor has to be a strong leader for the council and bring consensus together, and then hire the right city manager. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up question, it sounds like you clearly have a large background in this. Just what are a couple of the things that you look for when you're going to hire someone? Like, what are some of the top traits?
First, financial capabilities. The budget, a $412 million budget, is not a drop in the bucket. Somebody really has to understand how to be able to review each of these departmental budgets. So finance is probably top of the list for me, because we've got to really work on trying to bring control in City Hall and see where we can release some monies that can get applied to infrastructure. Also very important is demeanor. I would like to have somebody that knows how to be able to address people, find consensus within the city employees, and also judge performance-based operations. I would like to see our processes tightened up, our employees trained on the time value of money. So I'm looking for somebody who has that potential education and experience.
Troy Railsback.
This question is for Adam Morley. We talked a little about your challenges and at the state level as being a minority in the political party, but what are the top 3 priorities for District 19 that you would be advocating for in networking?
So my priorities, and I've been clear on them for about 9.5 years now, and it's becoming much more clear why they need to be priorities. The state legislature in our next session will be proposing a bill to sell off surplus conservation lands. What we saw with our state parks, everybody was opposed to that. That was across political spectrum, a bad idea, to put it lightly. And now we have a bill coming that's going to be selling off, or proposed to sell off, surplus conservation land in Florida. I believe that issues like conservation, and so do all Floridians. Amendment 1, 10 plus years ago now, the land and water conservation passed with overwhelming supermajority. Still hasn't properly, those funds still haven't been properly allocated for land and water conservation. What the people have said that they want, they are not getting. So we're talking conservation issues. I'm a captain by trade. Clean water is huge. Water is the economic driver in our state. It's one of the primary reasons people come. Local control is an issue, making sure that our local leaders are able to address the concerns effectively and efficiently, and slowing the overdevelopment, making sure that they have the resources to plan for the future.
Next question is for Jeffrey Seib. Share your perspective on the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships and why this is a negative or a positive for the city.
Well, I think it depends on the partnership that you would be talking about. I would believe that that there is a place for that. Now, as far as, for example, the economic development area, we have to enter into a partnership with a lot of the communities, a lot of the developers wanting to come in. We've got to partner with them. We've got to have a place for them to build, which we do have commercial and industrial properties. We have to fund our economic development. And there is ways we may be able to do that with tax incentives. You know, as Mike said, Mr. Norris, said that the commercial developers, commercial community only pays less than 10% of the property taxes right now. If we could have a development come in and make a tax incentive deal with them where they would get a tax break for a period of time, 5 years, say a 50% tax break, coming in and bringing as an incentive to have them come in. And what that would mean is we would still be receiving the rest of the taxes from them, which would help to change this makeup of the 90%, 10%, and they would be happy that they would be getting a tax break. After the 5 years, they would pay their full amount.
If I could ask a follow-up to that, if I could, please. How does the demographics of our current community align with your economic development objectives?
Well, I can only think of what the group that came in and the consulting firm that gave the speech or the talk to the city council from several weeks ago. They had reported that in our county, we have a 48% workforce rate. Nationwide, there is something like a 62%. And they attribute this to the fact that we have a higher proportion of retirees in our community. So this would be one thing that we would want to look into getting going, is bringing in more. Now, there's more young people, more young families moving in all the time. So I think we need the jobs for them, and that's what we would have to look into, is finding out how to best bring in the jobs that the young people want, and everything. Young people want a natural environment. They want a community that is thinking of sustainable energy. They want a community that has a beautification element with more trees and more environmental attributes. So these are the things that I think we could look into to help us to better attract all the younger people and a greater workforce that would help by evening out the tax base.
Penelope Anderson.
Ray Stevens, share your perspective on the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships and why this is a negative or positive for the city.
I believe it would be both. It's okay to enter into a partnership with private enterprise, but I don't think the city should be putting itself in a position to enter into competition with private enterprise. And that was my feeling with the YMCA that was talked about, and without a pool. That would be in direct competition with a number of local businesses that have spas, workout facilities. Same thing with golf courses. I don't think that the city should be competing with privately owned golf courses by either taking employees or offering their employees a higher salary to get them away from the private enterprise. So yes, in some cases it's necessary, it's a good idea to enter into partnerships, economic partnerships, but that's a thin line to walk in my opinion.
Amelia Fulmer.
Thank you. This question is for Andrew Werner. Share your perspective on the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships and why this is a negative or positive for the city.
My answer to that is it depends. It depends on what the proposal is. Some things that I think that we really need to be looking at before we enter in something like that is to make sure everything is absolutely transparent and in the public. If we're going to be entering into a public-private partnership, everyone should understand exactly what we're getting into. I think that the details need to be laid out in a timeline, just so that we know exactly what to expect. And I also think that the partnership should be even for both sides, and we should have everything in place to know exactly what is expected of both sides, and it needs to be followed through. So if you can do that and it is something that is favorable to the community, I think that that could be a good thing, but it has to meet those markers, in my opinion.
Lovey Haley.
This question's for Cornelia Downing-Manfrey. Share your perspective on the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships and why this is a negative or positive for the city?
Again, it comes down to the numbers. What is it? Where's it going? What's the profit? Who's getting the money? It depends upon what the program is. I have been studying Jacksonville, and Jacksonville owns a tremendous amount of land. And what they did was a smart thing. They have been leasing the land on ground lease, and the retailer or entity has come in and put up their own building, i.e. Wayfair and Amazon up on the western side of the city. There are different types of things that can be negotiated. Public-private, it's done all the time. It all depends upon what the program is and what the degree of equity is on both sides.
David Paul?
Yeah, for Adam Morley, share your perspective on the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships and why this is a negative or positive for the city.
So there's a House Bill 781 that passed recently in the last legislative session that kind of addresses that. My concern is with Tallahassee and their stripping of home rule, local control, and telling local communities what they can and can't do. So public-private partnerships have been around, but we have bills like 781 that are going to impact how they make those decisions. I personally am fairly neutral on it. I very much agree with a lot of the candidates here that they can be good, but it depends. It does need to be transparent. Everybody needs to know what's going on. But overall, I do think that we have qualified local leaders that can make those decisions, and I do think that it should be in their hands.
Troy Railsback.
Mr. Mike Norris, same question. Share your perspective on the city's ability to enter into public-private partnerships and why this is a negative or positive for the city.
The whole referendum thing, that's one of the main components to the referendum that they put on the ballot. Not just the money, but also doing the public-private partnership. I'm not opposed to that. And when they first proposed it, and even when they passed it, I said you can amend the charter for the amount of increase the money, and also allow public-private partnership. It has to be. You never go into a deal without knowing you're going to come out on the better end of it. You should never do that. You should. I have a family relative. He never goes into a deal unless he knows full well he's going to get his return back on it. So we have to make sure. And all this was done in the cover of night. They admitted that the whole reason they wanted to do it was to do that public-private partnership for that sports facility on the west side, knowing full well that the developers had committed in the DRI, the direct regional impact, in the past, that they were going to build that sports facility out there with a junior-size Olympic swimming pool and all the other the infrastructure needs that were going to come with that. So they're trying to change the comprehensive plan, which thank goodness that the comprehensive plan will not be approved by this sitting council now. So that comprehensive plan is up at the state now. It's going to come back, and then we're going to be allowed to fix it once the new council is seated. But they did it under the cloak of night, and any meeting that's taking place in a private lawyer's office between council members, that is not transparency.
The next question is for Ray Stevens. What are your plans for enhancing public safety while balancing community relations with law enforcement?
I think public safety, if we're speaking specifically of Palm Coast, is the sheriff's office is doing a good job. In spite of the rapid increase in population, to my knowledge, they're not stacking calls. Response time is good. Patrol is out there, they're visible. And in order to build a bond between law enforcement and citizens, there has to be trust in your law enforcement officers, and they have to be paid accordingly. You know, if you want something good, you're going to have to pay for it. So the salary has to be in line with their job, and manpower. That's how you build cooperation and confidence.
Penelope Anderson.
Andrew Warner. With ongoing growth in the city, how do you plan to manage the infrastructure strain, such as the increases in stormwater and utility fees, without placing an additional financial burden on residents?
Yeah, so I knocked on thousands of doors in the community, and growth was actually one of the biggest areas of concern for the residents when I talked to them. I got a spectrum of answers from people. On one end of the spectrum, I have people who are ready to shut the place down, and they're really, you know, they just have had it with the growth, and they could stop it right now, and they'd be okay. On the other end of the spectrum, there's people who are very favorable to the growth. Businesses and small businesses and folks who are economically involved in the growth of the community are very in favor of the growth. Somewhere in the happy middle is where I land. So, and this is where most of the people I talk to, their solution was in how you deal with stuff like this. So they understand that growth is happening here in Palm Coast. But as it happens, we need to make sure that we are taking care of our residents here in Palm Coast. Our infrastructure is our promise to them, those folks who have invested in our community. Our infrastructure is our promise to them that we are taking care of them in the process. So infrastructure, to me, has to be the priority in all of this. In all of this growth, we need to really evaluate the infrastructure and make sure we're taking care of our residents.
If I could do a follow-up question to that, if I could, please.
Sure.
From a capacity planning perspective, what percentage utilization are we at within our infrastructure? Most certainly capacity planning, capacity availability is a key component in infrastructure. So where are we from a capacity planning perspective with our infrastructure?
Well, that's a good question. I've reviewed the 2050 plan. The 2050 plan, and I was talking to someone here tonight, the 2050 plan has a lot of infrastructure projects built into the plan. There's one that reaches solution in 2030, and there's one that reaches a solution in 2050. All the infrastructure within that plan is spelled out in the 2050 comp plan. So how I would recommend any resident who's having issues with infrastructure and having complaints with infrastructure is to go take a look at our 2050 comp plan. Take a look if those projects are in the pipeline as far as the planning goes. And if not, come to the city council meetings and advocate for those things to be part of that. So that's how I would answer that question.
Amelia Fulmer.
The next question is for Cornelia. Name 3 industries you will bring to Palm Coast, and what connections and relationships do you have to facilitate their successful move or expansion to the area?
Thank you. I just brought some in. Over on Hargrove Grade, we've just leased the building to 7 different companies. One is a wire production company for cell towers coming in from Connecticut. The other large user there is a retired veteran female that has just bought a company here that supplies for veterans for having a baby. And she's paid by the government to box supplies that are sent to that person. And I'm very thrilled about what her plans are. It is just a tremendous addition to the area, and I'll be introducing that shortly with a press release about what's going on in that, that building. We have a high-end auto detail company that is just open, and on his opening day, invited over 100 car owners, and it was just really quite phenomenal. So we have a lot of companies looking at us, a lot of small business owners that are looking to come to the area. They want to move out of Daytona, they want to move out of the St. John's area, so we still have some opportunities. And I'm out there as a commercial person working with a lot of different users that would like to enter our market.
Love you, Haley.
The next question is for Adam Morley. What are your plans to keep the younger generations engaged and active in our local community and also have them stay in Palm Coast?
In one of my earlier runs, I talked of a tech and rec plan, technology and recreation. Now, growing up here, and I hear it a lot from locals, there's nothing to do for our youth. I understand where that's coming from. I also have to disagree. We have amazing resources that folks can get into, and I've seen up in St. Johns County where we have tried to bring in those businesses to attract the youth and give them something to do. Those businesses continue to fail. Like, it doesn't make economic sense. But we do have the resources, the natural resources, that through programs and education we can introduce students. I was the past president of the Flagler Sport Fishing Club, and we had programs that introduced the youth to fishing. That's something that we really don't have to put a lot of resources into. It's there naturally. We don't have to build infrastructure for that. We have lots of opportunities, and I would, 15 seconds, I would argue that we need to make sure that we have the resources that are going to be available into the future so that our youth can get into outdoor recreation and also have tech options, tech and rec.
David Paul.
This question's for Mike Norris. Name 3 industries you will bring to Palm Coast, and what connections/relationships do you have to facilitate their successful move or expansion to the area?
My biggest push, as I mentioned earlier, because of our location and the relocation of Space Force down at the Cape, we need to try to attract those industries, at least component manufacturing for the space industry. That should be our biggest push. We are ideally located for that. I have a gentleman that attends my church. He's developing drones that can carry capacity of 8 metric tons. You know what kind of capacity that is on a drone? And I'm like, and I told him, I said, we need you to come to Palm Coast. We need you to manufacture in Palm Coast. So, and he said, well, he works up in Green Cove Springs. That's their testing facility. They have where they can test their flights and stuff. But those are the kind of, and that's a big industry right now, the drone technology. And some people may not like it because it's the military industrial complex, but those are jobs. And it also plays into the question for Adam about the youth. My oldest son is a naval sub-officer. He wants to be an astronaut. He graduated Embry-Riddle with an aerospace engineer degree. Brilliant kid. My other son, Sean, is studying mathematics at Florida State. I want the kids of our community to be able to live, work, and stay here in Flagler County. But they can't do that if they don't have jobs here. So we have to push for those tech jobs that'll provide livable wages for people to raise their families here. And that's my ambition for the city.
Troy Railsback.
This question is for Jeffrey Sieb. What will you do to make it easier for businesses to start up or relocate to Palm Coast?
Well, I think there's been a number of comments about that very thing. For example, the time it takes to get the permits for the business, that is something that we could do some work on to shorten that time. I would say that all the economic development statements that have been made here tonight would be things that would help to bring in businesses to this community, which I would be willing to do. We need to have some economic development. We have now, the city just increased the funding in this past year's past budget by 22% for economic development. So they're going to be looking into that, and I think that's what we would want to do, is figure out more of what we want. Just hearing of the various firms that we could bring in, as I spoke before about a tax incentive, right now it's so heavily weighted towards homeowners in the property taxes that we could offer tax incentives to businesses to come in and end it in a period of time, 5 years, but it would help the business with expenses, and also we would be getting some tax revenue, which we're not getting now, and after 5 years, we would get the full amount. So I think that those would be avenues to look at.
The next question is for Andrew Werner. How do you repair and restore existing infrastructure without raising taxes?
Well, I think it's a matter of priority. Our budget is, we have, our budget is almost $500 million at this point. So it really is a matter of priority. And I think something that we could do for our residents is we could go out there and identify some of the biggest areas of concern for our residents and make it a priority through the budgeting process. We do have the money. We just have to make it a priority.
Penelope Anderson.
Cornelia, neither the mayor nor the city council members can direct city staff. How do you plan to navigate this environment from a compliance and policy perspective?
Very easily. You hire a city manager that oversees the staff. It is not the place for the city council to be directing the staff at all. The way that we are structured, the city council is pretty much the board of directors, and your city manager is your president. That person is in charge of the operations, the performance, and the budget for the city, and reports to the city council. The city council then makes the business decisions on the direction that the city manager is taking with the departments.
If I could ask a follow-up question, please. Executive hires are usually targeted.
I'm sorry, the what?
Executive hires are usually targeted hires.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have targets in mind, and how do you plan on doing targeted hires to bring in the right kind of skill set?
Well, to find city managers, we go through the League of Cities, public notification, and I am interested in talking to consultant companies to see if there might be a match of somebody who's already been trained in that problem-solving mode. Many of the consultant companies work with cities our size and larger, or companies, and they're hired to come in and problem solve. Is it profit sharing? Is it the people? Whatever the issues are with the company. That's a type of person that I'd like to see come in that has problem solving training.
Amelia Fulmer.
This question is for Adam Morley. What is your view of the role of small businesses in economic development in our community?
I should knock this out of the park. It is a huge role. Small businesses are, like the cliches, they're the backbone of our country and definitely our communities. I, being a small business owner, own two businesses in the district. The strength to the local economy with small businesses versus large outside corporations. I actually did a whole graph of the amount of revenue that's recycled back into the local economy and how it strengthens the local economy when we support small businesses over chains or corporations that are headquartered outside of our communities. Those corporations, those businesses tend to siphon money away from our communities. Whereas the small local businesses, they're the community, they're the strength in the community's economy. They strengthen the community's economy by recycling those funds back into the community. That money that you spend at a local business is going to sponsor the T-ball team. It's going to go back into the community. It's going to be reinvested in the community, whereas if you don't take care of the small businesses, you're going to ultimately be weakening your local economy. So making sure that they have the resources they need is essential.
Lovey Haley.
This next question is for Mike Norris. Neither the mayor nor city council members can direct city staff. How do you plan to navigate this environment from a compliance and policy perspective?
Believe it or not, being in the military and the things I've experienced in my life, the city manager, city council type of government that we have within this city fits my personality fine. I like being able to go to one person and say, hey, Adam, can you make sure that happens? So I think that's great. I think we have to, and I'm glad we got to this, we have to get a great city manager. The salary is great. The compensation is great. You take the base salary, which is $198, and you can add another 35 to 37% to that. So that puts somebody around $250,000 to be a city manager in our county, in our city, where the median household income is between $61,000 and $65,000. So I like the style of government we have. I'm hoping that we can find somebody. My objective is to do an external hire, someone with graduate level experience, working in a level of government that's commensurate with that of our city, that's going to be an effective, proactive leader. Ms. Johnston, when I had a meeting with her, I told her, I said, look, Ms. Johnston, and she doesn't want to be the city manager. And I told her, I said, I want someone that's not going to sit there at the end of the dais and not give any input to the city council. That city manager is there to keep the city council out of trouble. And they have to be very proactive and very effective in managing people.
David Paul.
For Jeffrey Seib, what are your thoughts on the half-penny sales tax increase for public safety?
Well, I think that public safety is something that's very important. I think this is something that, you know, we will be dealing with. So I would say that the half-penny tax is something that could be paid without too much pain and suffering by members of the community. Now, I know with the city budget, Sheriff Staley visited with the city and gave a report of what he needs for operating within the city for the next 3 years and what the price tag was on that, which the city's budget will be taking that up. We all want public safety. Public safety is very important. We need to have the fire and the emergency services and the police services up to what they need, and we need to fund them. And right now, our tax situation on the property taxes, because of the increase in valuation, has been is allowing for a lower tax millage rate than we have had in the last 5 years, for the last 2 years. So I think that we can pick up something like this, and we will have to go with it because we need these resources with which to deal with. And public safety has got to be number one, because we have to have a community that is safe, where our children can go and everyone can have that feeling of safety.
Troy Railsback.
This question is for Ray Stevens. What do you see as Palm Coast's 2025 Florida legislative priorities?
I don't understand the question.
The 2025 legislative session will have advocacy by the city, and there should be priorities aligned with the city's vision and focus. And so what would your 2025 Florida legislative priorities in your mind that benefit the city to go to the state to advocate for financial resources for the city's use?
You're asking me what I would like to see, their priorities. Well, once again, it's the infrastructure. And, you know, infrastructure is not only sewer and water. It is the flooding problems that we have here in some areas of Palm Coast, traffic problems that are actually choking the city, both in the ability to move from one place to the other, and as far as the environment, the air, pollution. That's what I would be lobbying for, monies to put and make that a priority. That's where I would stand. I'd have to talk to the city manager also that plays a part. It's not up to just each and every single individual council member. Each individual council member has to be an ambassador for the city, but certainly one council member can't really make too much of a difference on his or her own. So it's a united effort, and that's what I would like to see, the thrust for 2025. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Next question is for Cornelia Downing-Manfrey. Describe your specific experience in developing or providing oversight of a budget of similar size and complexity as the city of Palm Coast.
When I was in New York, I did 20 years of corporate real estate. One job was with United Artists Theaters. I was the reviewer of all of the assets by United Artists. We had 850 fee and leased properties, both in the United States, in Hong Kong, and Sydney, Australia. I was responsible for the renewals of leases. I was responsible for the money that was allocated, and I was the in-house negotiator with many of the landlords that we had. I'm very accustomed to large numbers. I'm very accustomed to working with the different individuals to be able to get consensus on the money. Thank you.
Penelope Anderson.
Adam Morley, describe your specific experience in developing or providing oversight of budgets.
So, as a small business owner, we obviously have budgets that we have to stick to, and as a campaign on a budget, we have to work really diligently to make sure that the dollar goes as far as it possibly can. Fortunately for the position that I'm running for, and for my strengths, I work very well collaboratively. So working with those who have more experience is something that I do well with. And so in addition to the small businesses that my wife and I run, we collaborate on that. I work best collaboratively. So I can't personally take credit for most anything that people would say that I have accomplished, because it's always been collaborative group efforts, communities coming together to achieve the outcome. So I work best collaboratively. I'm not going to take credit for anything as an individual. I share the credit with those who deserve it.
Amelia Fulmer.
This next question is for Mike Norris. Describe your specific experience in developing or providing oversight of budgets of similar size and complexity as the city of Palm Coast.
In my assignment overseas, working in Okinawa for the Marine Corps, just in infrastructure projects alone, we averaged between $125 and $135 million a year, specifically for infrastructure, housing, stormwater management, electrical, barracks, all the functions within a city, we handle them. And we had a population roughly of 40,000 people within our installations. We had 3 installations. I was the emergency operations director. So we had it was a small city what we dealt with. As far as the city budget is concerned, right now the city council is voting on approving the final budget for the city. And just to make a correction of what someone said earlier, said $412 million. No, the city budget, proposed budget for this year is $421 million. that's an increase of almost 18% over the last year. 61 million of that is from ad valorem taxes, which is a little bit right around 10%, maybe a little bit over 10%. So you got to know the numbers, and got to know what's going on. Our last year's budget was like $358 million. So we are getting revenue in, but we have to prioritize. And I can discuss if I'm asked a question about legislative priorities, so we can discuss that if you like.
Lovey Haley.
This next question is for Jeffrey Seib. Describe your specific experience in developing or providing oversight of budgets of similar size and complexity as the city of Palm Coast.
Well, a budget of that type, the size of the city of Palm Coast budget, I have not had experience in doing a department at the University of Florida. And that was involved with the purchasing, the management of the employees' salaries, the supplies that we needed, the operating expenses that we had on a daily basis. These are the things that I had responsibility for. Large equipment purchases, equipment in the millions of dollars, spectrophotometers and nucleic acid imaging machines, these types of things. As far as the size of the city budget, attending the city council meetings where the city accountants and the city departmental leaders came in and we looked at every penny that went out of this city budget for their expenditures, and you could go down the line, and that's what the council will have to do. We will have to look at what they do at that time, each of the departments, of places where we could perhaps make savings and go forward with economies and where we should prioritize our spending. But they all add up to the total amount that we will be spending each year. But it's broken down into those parts that's where we would want to look.
David Paul.
This question's for Ray Stevens. Describe your specific experience in developing or providing oversight of budgets of similar size and complexity as the city of Palm Coast.
As a civil servant, as working for a police department within the city, the accounting departments made up the budget. My division was allocated X amount of dollars, or my budget, and I had to live within it. I think that's as important or more important than making up a budget is living within one. And I had to do, I had assistants that did purchasing, buying equipment, fingerprint equipment, et cetera. But the bottom line is I was given X amount of dollars and I had to live within that budget, and I did.
Troy Railsback.
Andrew Werner, same question. Describe your specific experience in developing or providing oversight of budgets of similar size and complexity as the city of Palm Coast.
Sure. I do have some experience, although on a very much smaller scale. So I've been a part of 2 HOA boards, and if anybody's ever been a part of those, they're somewhat similar, obviously on a very smaller scale. But you're, as a team, you're deciding things like repairing infrastructure, responding to citizen complaints, and of course, keeping an adequate amount of money in your reserves, which is all things that, as a city council member, we would be asked to do. I've also been a part of leadership teams that were in schools, and they involved us in the budgeting process, so that's obviously staffing and just making sure the needs of the school are met. So I do have some experience. Obviously, that is not equal up to a $500 million budget, but I understand the ideas, and obviously keeping within your budget and putting your priorities in that budget, I think are things that are most important.
This is the final round of questions. Adam Morley. Many families and individuals with special needs believe they have been ignored in Palm Coast planning. What are your long-term plans to address housing, workforce, and transportation solutions for these individuals?
as with the answer to the last question, I work best collaboratively. I don't have, and I'll take this time to also kind of talk about how the legislative process works. It's not about me showing up with a plan and introducing it and then it just being enacted. Plans evolve at the state legislature, and you have to work with your fellow legislators to come up with solutions to problems that are brought to you by your constituents. So if you come to me with a issue and you want solutions for problems, I, again, work better collaboratively. Let's figure out the solution. Let's figure out what we should propose. Let's figure out who in Tallahassee is going to be on board with us, and let's work together to find those solutions. So it's tough when I'm asked, what's your plan? My plan is to work to represent the people and come up with the solutions that they want together, rather than me saying, I know what's best, which is what's currently happening in Tallahassee. I want to work with the community to come up with the solutions that they need. I'm not going to claim to know the answers on these kinds of subjects until I talk to the experts and those that are actually impacted by the issue.
Penelope Anderson.
Mike Norris. As a mayoral candidate, describe your experience, attributes, leadership style, and temperament to build consensus and collaboration amongst city council members while remaining compliant with sunshine laws.
I've always been a team player. I was in the military for 24 years. You don't go 24 years in the military without being a team player. So you have to work, as Adam mentioned, about being collaborative with others. It's a team effort. It takes five people on the city council plus the city manager managing the city, and that's a big burden. So you have to be able to work with people, reach across party lines. It's about the city. It's not about individuals. And the last city council meeting I was at, they were interviewing people for that District 4. I came after cutting my lawn, so I was still sweaty and stuff. And I came in and I sat down. I was there for like 3 minutes. And once it started, I'm like, I can't even be in this room. So you have to be able to reach across the line. And I think everyone that's running, they have their own intent for running. But I'm a professional. I've been doing these things my whole career. I have the education. I have the leadership experience. It's kind of hard to go through being enlisted for 13 years and then receiving your commission. I had to get a time in service and an age waiver to commission in the Army. So I've been a team player. I'm a combat veteran. I have 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Meritorious Service Medals. You know, I have been a leader my entire adult life. Thank you.
Amelia Fulmer.
This question is for Jeffrey Seib. Many families of individuals with special needs believe they've been ignored in Palm Coast planning. What are your long-term plans to address housing, workforce, and transportation solutions for these individuals?
Well, it's a very fitting question for me because my special needs stepdaughter is one of those that have had difficulties in the city. She has cerebral palsy. And for example, the Belterre Swim and Racket Club pool was where we would go to get her exercise because she could use the hydraulic chair where she could get in the water and swim. She can't walk. She's in a wheelchair. So these are some of the things. For example, the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, requirements for city parks, for places like that. Some of them have not been followed in the city, and this has been spoken to the city council many times. So this is one thing that I think we can go ahead and work on as the next group coming in. We can work with that and get that done, get all our parks, all our facilities completely ADA compliant. You know, this is one thing. I came from the University of Florida, where I retired from. Everything was ADA compliant at the University of Florida. So I'm familiar with that. I think it's important to do as far as housing and jobs. This is something, you know, I remember there was a student there that would drive up in her truck every day and park right outside where my office was, and I would see her there. She had a crane, and the crane lifted her wheelchair out of the truck, and she would scoot away to her classes. After a while, I talked with her, and she had graduated from the University of Florida.
Lovey Haley.
This question is for Ray Stevens. Many families of individuals with special needs believe they have been ignored in Palm Coast planning. What are your long-term plans to address housing, workforce, and transportation solutions for those individuals?
What he said. Yes, I think we should double check and be sure that we're meeting the ADA requirements in our parks and public buildings. And I have to echo Mr. Saib's remarks concerning the Belterre pool that had a special mechanism whereby people with disabilities would be able to get into the pool and swim. That no longer exists. They closed that down. And the YMCA they were supposed to build wasn't going to have a pool. But so, once again, the only thing as an individual city council member is to make sure that we are in compliance with the American with Disabilities Act across the board. Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up question? You made a couple comments about the YMCA not having a pool. What leads you to believe that they're not, or they wouldn't have a pool?
Because it was publicized. It was in the media, in the newspapers, the radio. No pool.
Okay. David Paul.
This is for Andrew Warner. Many families of individuals with special needs believe that they have been ignored in Palm Coast planning. What are your long-term plans to address housing, workforce, and transportation solutions for those individuals?
Yeah, so I think the previous gentleman answered it pretty well. I work as a school psychologist, and I work with students with disabilities. So I'll just add, for folks that don't know, what the American with Disabilities Act does is that we have access to parks and city buildings and all other areas are accessible to us. All of those things need to equally be accessible to those who have a disability and may have difficulty getting into those places. I've talked to several families at the city council meeting after the meeting concluded, and there are a lot of families that say that, you know, their children or their family members just do not have the access that they need to have here in the city of Palm Coast, whether it's any of those places that I mentioned. So that's something that we really need to address. We need to address, you know, the needs of our most vulnerable residents, and not only that, we need to champion efforts to support them. So I think that we should be out there assessing every area that needs to be assessed to determine if these places are accessible to all of our residents and not just those without disabilities.
Troy Railsback.
This question is for Cornelia Downing-Manfrey. Same question as the other mayoral candidate. As a mayoral candidate, describe your experience, attributes, leadership style, and temperament to build consensus and collaboration amongst the city council members while remaining compliant with the Sunshine Laws.
I think my 40 years of business experience has given me the background to be able to deal with the other 4 members of the council, the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk. I really believe that Palm Coast would like to see a calmer city council. I believe I have the leadership skills for providing that, having been a negotiator for these 40 years of different types of developments, sales, leasing, companies. I know how to work with different types of people and draw consensus. It's about interviewing, in a sense interrogating, when you're on the council, but to come up with the compromises in order to move us forward. My 40 years of business background, 25 years here in Florida, I am passionate about this community and I would like to see us move forward.
And thank you. I thank the candidates for the responses to the questions, and I also thank the panel as well for the questions. With that, now we'll go to candidate closing remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for their closing statement. We'll go in alphabetical order. We'll begin with, we'll go in order with Cornelia Downing Manfrey.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be running for this position. This is my second time, but now I think the time is for me to give to the community my background, the amount of time that I have been in business, and the businesses that I've brought here. This community needs jobs, jobs, jobs. We need commercial industrial development. We need to get our infrastructure sorted out. We need to get our money sorted out. All of these things are the things that I'm willing to give my time and energy to, find the right city manager, and teach our administrators in the city hall the time value of money and customer service. Always remember, this is your money that's being spent. They are being paid by you from your taxes. It is imperative that they are responsive, accountable, and we have a city manager that can oversee their performance. As far as our marketing, we've got a great area. We're sandwiched between St. John's and Volusia counties. We have got to be ready for what's coming. We must get our infrastructure in place. That's my priority. I want to thank Tiger Bay, and I thank everyone who's been able to be here tonight in the threat of a hurricane, and also for all the listeners online. Thank you.
Adam Morley.
I want to thank Tiger Bay for the opportunity to address the community this evening. I don't have a prepared closing remarks. I'm going to kind of wing this here, and I want to say that I'm actually really excited about all the candidates up here, regardless of who makes it through the November election, because it sounds like the community is kind of on board with a lot of common ground issues, and that's what I have always focused on, because those are the areas that we can actually make some progress moving forward, and bridges can be built, and we can start to actually get past some of the politics that we've been seeing in the past. So I'm excited about what I've heard from the candidates up here, because as a state representative, these all sound like individuals that not only can I work with, but I'd be excited to work with in bringing resources back to the district. I do want to say and kind of point out that this is a very artificial environment for us candidates. This is not really how it works in the real world when we're out there collaborating with our constituents, collaborating with our peers. The questions are great, but it would be nice to interact with everybody after. It would be nice to get people engaged talking directly with the candidates so that they could get a better feel of who they are rather than in a panel like this. But this has been a great evening, and I really enjoy the opportunity to get out and talk with the constituents. Thank you.
Mike Norris.
I'd like to thank everyone for inviting me out. We're at an inflection point in the history of this city, and I hope everyone recognizes that. So we've got a lot of things we have to fix, and I consider myself an outside hire. I talked about an outside hire for the city manager, and that's going to be my push, to hire somebody that's not embedded in this city or beholden to developers or other organizations within the city. I think there's a lot of grift in this city, and I want to see it stop because of the things I've been seeing and hearing. I would like you to know that I have the education background. I'm a trained leader. My entire life I've been a leader. And one of the primary reasons I started getting involved in politics was when I heard a conservative council vote themselves 151% pay raise. That was over the point for me. I'm like, Mike, you got to do something. And I discussed it with my wife, and we're like, okay, we're going to do this. I've pledged $10,000 of the mayor's salary annually to charity, $5,000 towards a food pantry, and $5,000 towards a scholarship to be established. Maybe it'll be called the Mayor Mike Scholarship. I don't know. We're working some best case scenarios. But that's my point. We have to get to leadership and make things happen within this city. As far as the legislative priorities, that was a question earlier. We, the city, were robbed. We wasted a once-in-a-generation opportunity by having a Speaker of the House from our district. We didn't get $35 million for wastewater treatment plant 1. We didn't get $42 million for Old Kings Road. We didn't get $6 million for the YMCA, and that's a problem. Priorities are not right, and they did that to you. And I'm glad all those people that were a part of that will no longer be a part of that city council. Thank you.
Jeffrey Seib.
Yes, well, thanks to the Tiger Bay Club and the young executives at Tiger Bay, looking good. Get your fellow young people out there also. We got to help to keep everybody going. I think it's a great idea. You know, at the University of Florida, I worked for 25 years in this research environment. And what it meant was I worked with doctoral, PhD students, postdocs, researchers, and these were people from around the world. I worked with the United Nations of my department. We had students from the United Kingdom, from Russia, from Egypt, from Bangladesh, from India, from China, from Brazil, from Mexico. We had students all over the world, and we all had to work together. So that is one thing that we got to do, is we've got to work together. And this city council will have to work together, and we'll need to work together. Doesn't mean we won't have disagreements. It doesn't mean we won't feel strongly about what our opinions are, but that's okay. You know, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is the environment and keeping our city green. You know, because a great city integrates nature into the city environment. And this is something that I would be pushing, but I think our council, at least the folks that are here tonight, will go along with that within reason and help support that, because it's something that will help our city and help us to get to people come in. The economic development is critically important as we go forward, because once the ad valorem taxes starts going down for homes, we need something to pick up the slack, and that will be businesses. So we got to do what he can. I'm ready to go, and I think we could all work together, and that's what I would be working for. Like I said, my philosophy is win-win. I'll work with everybody to get things done. Thank you.
Ray Stevens.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank the Tiger Bay Club for inviting us here this evening. And I want to use my closing time because I want to discuss something that concerns me. And that is the influx of dark money, PACs, especially real estate and development PACs, into this election. And in doing so, my concern, and it should be everybody's concern, is that if a candidate accepts thousands of dollars in PAC money, where is that person's allegiance going to lie? Is it going to be with the people of Palm Coast in the city? Or is it going to be with the people in the PACs, the real estate and developer PACs that have pumped thousands of dollars into their campaign? I am self-funded. I am self-funding my campaign. I owe no one. I will not owe anyone. And my allegiance is going to be with the city, with the people in the city, and what's in their best interest. You can guarantee it. I guarantee you that. And not to some dark money PAC out of Tallahassee, Gainesville, Orlando, or Jacksonville. So with that, I am ready to work for the people of Palm Coast, and only the people of Palm Coast, because I have no agenda. Thank you.
Andrew Warner.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here, and thanks again to Tiger Bay. This has been a lot of fun. This event was great. I will just have to say that this campaign has been an absolute privilege for me. Just meeting all the different residents in Palm Coast, regardless of the outcome, this has been a win for me and my family. We have met so many great people, so many great Americans in Palm Coast, and it's just been a phenomenal experience. I met so many people out knocking doors that would come to me and say, you know, I almost ran for this or I almost ran for that. But the truth is this is a hard thing to do. And I'm talking to everybody up here and they know that. So I think that we should congratulate everybody that has made it this far and decided to dedicate their time to be a candidate for Palm Coast. I really think we have some really good candidates, and I'm proud to be one of them. But now we have a choice. We have a choice. Palm Coast has a choice in who they're going to decide to vote for. If you remember anything that I said tonight, I want you to remember that I promise to listen to residents, advocate for their needs, and to problem solve to the best of our ability. And the truth is when we problem solve together, when we do that thing together, we come together as a community. And I believe a leader should bring their community together. That's what I hope to do for Palm Coast. Thank you so much, guys.
How about another round of applause for all of the candidates here tonight? Thank you all for being here. Also, we would like to give or at least thank our moderator tonight, as well as all of our incredible panelists. How about a round of applause for them? They did a fantastic job. And for all of you, thank you so very much for being here tonight. On behalf of Tiger Bay, we truly hope that you have taken away tonight some valuable information that's going to help you when it comes time to vote. So with that said, everyone have a wonderful evening. Again, thank you to everyone for being here. Be safe, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Take care, everyone.